So it's no secret that I appreciate Apple products, and the reason mainly is because of how they incorporate their values into those products and these tools that I use that enable me to create, that enable me to pursue my passion in my career. And this is simply why I am just so thrilled with the iPhone 11 Pro.
Voiceover on alert. Voiceover gestures. To go home, slide one finger up from the bottom. Okay, but.
For context, I am legally blind since birth, and what that means is that my visual impairments are non-correctable and fall under the spectrum of blindness according to medical professionals and the government. Back when I was in middle school, I was introduced to VoiceOver and Zoom on Mac OS, and that was back in 2008. Since then, I've been using the Mac ecosystem to actually do video editing, and it's allowed me to do that. And then in 2009, the iPhone became accessible. It became the first smartphone that had a screen reader and Zoom technology built in for the masses of blind people. It's been a decade now, and the iPhone is still one of the leading accessible smartphones in the market. And this only continues with the iPhone 11 and iPhone 11 Pro. Just a side note, this is not a review of the iPhone 11 or 11 Pro. This is simply my impressions and overall thoughts and experience as a visually impaired user. If you want a full review, I recommend you check out Ritchie, who does even cover some accessibility in his video and commentary. If you want to see a more accessible review from the perspective of journalist Stephen Aquino, be sure to check that out. Links will be in the description. So I want to take a minute and just picture this. Imagine if everything you saw was blurry. Not just blurry, but shaking. And not just shaking, but constantly shaking, like vertigo, like you're experiencing an earthquake. Imagine if all the light in your field of view was overexposing. That's how I see. That's how I see the world. My vision is overexposed, constantly shaking, and constantly blurry. These effects in my vision are created from two different ocular conditions called ocular albinism and nystagmus. Before you go and suggest anything, there's no reliable treatment or cures for the vision. And so for me, assistive technology has always been my go-to, and it's always been something I've been intrigued and excited about. For someone who's a filmmaker, me, I use these big magnifiers, these big things that can capture moments in time, things that I might miss in the moment, but I can play back and I can zoom in on a big display if I need to. That's cool, that's great. Cameras are these magnifiers I'm referring to, but none of them are ever meant to be accessibility tools. That kind of changes with the iPhone. The iPhone has become the go-to camera for many people. It's always in your pockets. It's got great picture quality and great video quality. And these sensors are just so small that they fit on this computer that is able to do all this unique post-processing and in-the-moment processing, like portrait mode and smart HDR. All these cool features that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, they make your pictures look better. They make your pictures look as good as they do on such a small sensor. I'm super excited and thrilled to have the iPhone 11 Pro because it's an accessible camera. Again, when I started this video by taking a selfie, I wasn't looking for that, during that selfie, I turned on VoiceOver. I navigated to the camera app because it was reading that aloud to me. It allowed me to know that my face was centered and that I was on the right camera, the front-facing one, and I snapped a photo. And I took a pretty damn good selfie if you ask this blind guy. When the iPhone 3GS shipped in 2009, it shipped with iPhone OS 3. This was before iPhone OS was known as iOS. And back then, iPhone OS 3 was introducing VoiceOver and Zoom for the iPhone. For the first time on a smartphone, a blind person with either some vision with Zoom could then navigate the OS, or with no vision whatsoever, navigate the entire native operating system with VoiceOver, a screen reader. Since then, Apple has continuously updated VoiceOver and Zoom, along with a number of other accessibility features like magnifier. There is a lot happening in the accessibility settings of your devices, whether you know it or not, or have ever even taken the time to appreciate that. From my personal experience, VoiceOver on the iPhone with iOS 13 has never felt more alive. When I skim my finger to have something read aloud, such as an item, such as the next settings, such as the next options, it actually vibrates with each subtle tap that I make.
Go home. Heading. With VoiceOver on, slide one finger up from the bottom edge until you feel the first vibration to go home. With continue. Switch between recent apps.
There's no tactile, there's no braille on this flat glass surface, but with VoiceOver and the haptic engine doing its work, in iOS 13, the iPhone has never felt more alive with VoiceOver. Personally, from my use, I always felt VoiceOver was a little sluggish up until iOS 13. In iOS 12 and before, I always felt like there was a split-second delay with every action I was doing, and sometimes even the OS would have a delay. But not anymore. iOS 13 continuously surprises me, and this might be because of the A13 chip in the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro, but even on my iPhone 10 with the A11 chip, it still felt fluid and fast, and that haptic engine felt alive. And this only continues on the iPhone 11. As again, someone who is legally blind with some increments of vision, Zoom is my primary way to navigate my phone. Oftentimes I'm using sight, but just very little of it. In iOS 13, Zoom has been updated with more fast and fluid control. As you skim your finger across with the controller, the camera moves just as fast with you. Zoom also has customizable controls. A single tap could be my zoom in, a double tap could be my zoom in, and a triple tap, that could actually be a light version of VoiceOver, and I can have it speak any items on screen.
James has created numerous videos. He also posts videos every month on his YouTube channel where James has created
without actually having to use the full experience of VoiceOver. Even though I am legally blind, it's nice to at least have like a silhouette kind of colored in reference of what I'm looking at, or what the camera sees with my Apple Watch. That's pretty rad. I can still kind of zoom in here. So the Apple Watch does support zoom. It's a little, not the most intuitive with how small the screen is, but gets the job done. But for now, enough about the software. Let's talk about the new hardware in the iPhone 11 Pro. I skipped the XS last year because even to today's standards, the iPhone X is a very powerful and very modern phone. It's still great, but I felt like the compelling features of the iPhone 11 Pro specifically really caught my eye. That's a pun, by the way. On an average day with my 11 Pro, I've been able to start the morning at 8 a.m. with about 95 to 100% battery. Throughout the day, I am streaming videos, I'm streaming audio, lots of audio. Oftentimes, I'll just put on a video, close the app, and just listen. As the day continues, I'm checking email constantly, I'm texting, I'm using dictation a lot. I'm also recording lots of video oftentimes. Despite all this social media refreshing, mail fetching, and continuously recording things, I will end my day at around 8 to 9 p.m. with 30 to 40% battery life still. And that's impressive. The next thing is the Super Retina XDR display. That is a mouthful. I'm just gonna talk about the display. The display is brighter. It's nice to look at, and for me, I'm not appreciating all those pixels on screen, not by any means. When I do zoom in, that's when I can kind of start making things out a little bit more, but either way, we're talking about brightness, and the brightness is great on this phone. Even outdoors in direct sunlight, my 10 I couldn't see often, and oftentimes what I do is just turn on VoiceOver and screen curtain and navigate a whole black screen with just a screen reader. It's a great feature to have, it's handy, but with the 11 Pro and 11 Pro Max, the display is super bright. I'm able to just have it out in direct sunlight and just see things. Another key feature for me has been the spatial audio. Again, I'm listening to things often. I'm watching videos, I'm watching Netflix, I'm hopefully in the future gonna be watching Apple TV Plus on my phone. But there are times when I don't wear headphones and I'm either just in the comfort of my home or I wanna share something with someone. And when I'm sharing that, audio is important. I like to be able to hear as well as possible from these speakers. And since the iPhone 7 and 7 Plus, the iPhone speakers have been gradually improving drastically each year. I'm very satisfied and very excited to just watch content on my phone, even without headphones. And with all these great new features, and I'll talk more in depth about the camera in just a moment, but I need to talk about the cutoffs. I need to talk about the things that I miss, and that is 3D Touch. 3D Touch is a feature that you maybe have never even heard of or used, but if it is, you might know what I'm talking about. 3D Touch was introduced in the iPhone 6s, and it was an extra feature that used hardware underneath the glass display. and this hardware could register pressure, so pressure-sensitive touches. And this allowed for some unique actions within the operating system. It was one thing to tap a notification in iOS from your lock screen. To actually do a hard press, you could pop up the notification, reply right from messages right there, without actually having to open the app. If you tapped on a link, it would just open up Safari and take you into that web page. But if you did a hard press, it actually showed you a preview of what this website is before you actually fully visit that website. It was nice to know if I wanted to actually proceed with that action or simply not. But that's not why I miss it, and that's not why I use 3D Touch. I'm gonna talk about Zoom Controller. Zoom Controller is something I brought up earlier in this video, and that allows you to precisely move around your display on the iPhone with just a joystick controller. With the iPhone 6S to the 10S, excluding the 10R, you were able to actually do a hard press on that Zoom controller and get a very fast and precise zoom in. It was like a zoom peak. This was great for just real quick if I wanted to glance at something, get real quick detail, very close up, and it's gone. So the replacement to 3D Touch is Haptic Touch. The haptic engine in the iPhone will try and give you the feel of 3D Touch, but because you still have to do a long press, there's many milliseconds that go by that 3D Touch would have already responded and did the action you wanted to do. It may not be a big deal to many people. It's barely a big deal to me, but it's because of the zoom accessibility feature that I just love the responsiveness so much of that. I'm gonna simply miss it. So simply put it, the iPhone is kind of my treatment. It's kind of my cure. It's the thing that allows me to see. It's able to capture such detail from such a far distance, and it's in my pocket. This was not possible years ago. Back when I was a kid, we had these big monitors, like the size of the computers that you had in the early 2000s. It was simply just a monitor that was big and clunky, and it was attached to this plate, and this plate on top had a camera, and this camera system allowed you to, from a top-down view things like papers and small print, put anything underneath of it, and you could zoom in and see the detail. Oftentimes I get fascinated by how much the skin had detail. To me, this was just like, this is just tan, this is just white and pink, and having it underneath this like CCTV is what they're called. I could see all the texture, the reptilian looking texture on the human skin. It was kind of wild. All that can be done now from this device in my pocket because Apple does value accessibility. It allows for someone who has low vision or no vision whatsoever to use a camera. I don't see companies like Canon or Sony or Panasonic or Nikon doing accessible computer tech in their viewfinders. I'd love to see them do that. I'd love to help out any way I can, but in the meantime, companies that are creating smartphones are doing these. So to reiterate, a CCTV back in the day, this big thing that was not portable by any means. It was like a 15-inch display and had this big camera, and both things were plugged into the wall and using up a lot of power. Now I can just take that device anywhere and everywhere. I can now have my portable CCTV that's in my pocket, my iPhone, and I can see walking signs from across the street going through a city. That's the impact that the iPhone cameras have. And I think that we get caught up oftentimes in the technology and the advancements and the patents, and I love technology as much as everyone else, but the rumors and the unsatisfaction that we in the tech community have it's boring. It's exhausting, and that energy, I'm not a fan of it. So personally, I'm here to celebrate what I have right now, and again, like, you celebrate even the few generation of phones back, like the 8 Plus, the 7 Plus, the 10, they all have amazing cameras. You even talk about like a competition if you want. Like, there's amazing cameras on other manufacturers' smartphones, and many of them do have accessibility features built in, thanks to the iPhone 3GS's lead in the decade ago that was introduced in. If you have a smartphone that's running iOS 13, you can control the entire operating system. You can take photos and video and do it all without even touching the phone. You can do it with just your voice using voice control. This advanced system that allows you to control the entire operating system with just your voice. That's awesome. And maybe you can't talk. Maybe you're nonverbal. Maybe you can't even physically touch your phone. That's okay, because you can also use switch control. You could have your phone mounted to a wheelchair or power chair, and you could have it set up where it works with switches, buttons that maybe you move with your tongue, or a button from the back of your hand, and you can You can do all that with this camera. You can't do that with a Nikon, you can't do that with a Sony or a Canon camera. But with an iPhone you can. And I think that's so cool. This has been my personal take on my experience with the iPhone 11 and 11 Pro. It's got a great camera setup. It's got a wide lens, an ultra wide lens, telephoto lens, and a pretty solid front-facing camera. So this is a quick test of the front-facing camera on the iPhone 11 Pro. How's the audio with all of the noise in downtown Los Angeles? Curious. And all these are able to capture such detail that has more practical uses beyond just capturing a memory or filming a video like this. Going all the way back to the iPhone 7 Plus, I've been trying to make the iPhone kind of like this go-to primary camera, but even back then I'd still carry a point and shoot in my pocket just in case, because I always felt like the video quality on a point and shoot was always going to be a little bit more dynamic. It always allowed for a little bit more. But by learning how to use an iPhone camera, like if you really want to learn how to do certain cinematography shots and you take the time and effort to do so, you have a really damn good camera in your pocket that is ready to just blend in with DSLR cameras. You might not have all the bokeh in the world, and you may not have all the full control that is in other native viewfinders and other DSLRs, but what you have is a really good wide camera that has the potential to do tight shots like this with a telephoto lens, or go full ultra wide. And for photography purposes, you can do night mode, you can do portrait mode, you can do portrait lighting. This camera is great, and it's probably the best camera on a smartphone. I'm legally blind, I probably shouldn't be the best judge of picture quality, but what it does for me is it takes really good photos that allow me to zoom in after and kind of appreciate a lot of that detail that is there that I can't see in the moment, and I can't see when I'm shooting. I am excited to see where these cameras are going to be going in the future. Let me know, what kind of phone are you rocking right now? What phone are you using at the moment? What phone do you want to use? What camera on the market is your go-to accessible camera? Do you have one at the moment? Leave the comments, and I want to hear from you. I hope that you could see different today, and I'll hear you next time. Bye. No, but I think I'm gonna leave that there.